Okay, welcome everybody, the thousands of people that are watching. Okay, today we're going to be discussing Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was one of the great rabbis. He was one of the great sages. Goes back about 2,000 years ago, right? Right now, we're almost at the end of 2020. Then goes 2021, right? 2020. Rabbi Akiva was born in the year 17 of the Common Era, and he passed away 137. So it's about, give a little less than 2,000 years ago. A little less than 2,000 years ago. 1900 and change. Okay. So Rabbi Akiva was he was one of the greatest rabbis in Jewish history. We're going to talk about that later. Really some cool stuff about him. But we're going to first read this text that goes just very general about him, and then I got all the cool stuff about him. Okay, if we want, we could go around and everybody could read a little bit, and then we can go that way.
You're running the show, Rabbi.
Go ahead.
What do we
Go ahead. Read the first two paragraphs.
Among the many great figures in Jewish history, Rabbi Akiva arguably represents a combination of everything that is heroic about the Jewish people more than anyone else. At the least, he is one of the most beloved figures in the Jewish history. A person whose influence and stature is a source of inspiration throughout all of the ages. Whatever one says about Rabbi Akiva, one can never say enough. The Talmud compares him favorably to Moses, which is the ultimate compliment in the Jewish lexicon. He is the national hero of the Jewish people for all time. Rabbi Akiva was a leading contributor to the Mishnah and to Midrash. He is also sometimes credited with redacting Abraham's version of the Sefer Yetzirah.
Okay, let me stop. There is a Kabbalistic book that has secrets of the Torah that even us, we don't even know what it really is. And the tradition is that it goes back to Abraham. Rabbi Akiva was such a great Kabbalist also, that he was able to look into that book and to kind of update it and upgrade it and change certain things in the book with authority. Usually no one's going to touch that book. Rabbi Akiva had the knowledge of knowing what's going on in the higher worlds, that he could say, this, okay, we gotta switch this around. Either because of the version of the book didn't come, or for whatever reason, he was able to see things on a deeper level. We don't know what that means, but just to give you a value of who Rabbi Akiva was.
Okay. One of the central texts of Jewish mysticism.
That's going back to the Sefer Yetzirah.
Yes, so let me just reread it. He's also sometimes credited with redacting Abraham's version of the Sefer Yetzirah, one of the central texts of Jewish mysticism. He is referred to in the Talmud as Rosh La Nachamim, chief of the sages. He was executed by the Romans in the aftermath of the Bar Kokhba revolt.
Okay, so there was a revolt.
I know that.
Jews at that time.
Yeah,
and he was at that time. It was it's okay. Don't worry about it. Okay, now next, Danny, you want to read a little bit?
Yeah.
Third paragraph. You may know
of Rabbi Akiva ben Joseph, about whom our sages say that he was one of the greatest scholars of all times. With his sharp mind, the sages said, he could uproot mountains, and he could explain every single letter of the Torah, even the little crowns that adorn many of the letters of the Torah. Rabbi Akiva was one of four great sages who tried to enter the deepest secrets of creation and learning, and he was the only one who came out sounds of body and sane of mind.
Okay, so let me explain what it is. We said two things here. In the Torah, the letters are not the way we see the letters in the Siddur. In the Torah, some of the letters have little crowns on it. So there are certain letters that have crowns and certain letters that don't have crowns. You would say, whatever, it's just a style, it's a font. Rabbi Akiva, when he learned the Torah, he was so insightful, it was so deep for him, that when he would learn a verse and it had crowns on it, he would tell you what every crown on the letters represents. That's how much knowledge he had in the depth of the Torah, not just what it means, but in deeper, deeper, deeper levels. That he went and he took every letter with a crown and in the context of it, and he explained it. There was one time he got stuck, and he couldn't give the explanation, and he kind of said, in that case, I'm redacting everything I said. But later the sages said that there was actually an answer for that one, and not to take away everything else that he did. That was just to show you what the value. That was one. The second thing that we said here, that Rabbi Akiva was one of the great sages who tried to enter the deepest secrets of creation. So the way it's brought down, I think in the Kabbalah it's brought down, or Medrash, Arba nichnusu lepardes, 4 went into the orchard. Doesn't mean an orchard with trees, and orchard means like at a higher level. They were able to go up, like in a soul level, able to go up. What is that?
Like meditation wise?
Like a meditation, exactly. Like a meditation that you're spiritually, you could like, your soul, like you could go somewhere
Elevated.
else. Like, like a trip. Today, some people take a trip when they're smoking, but this was like a spiritual trip, not like this trip that we know today. And these 4 guys, 4 great rabbis, they went on a trip together. Now, they went one level, which was okay. Then they went to another level, it was like a little stronger. And then they went up to a point that it was like very powerful, to the point that they exploded, in a sense. One of them passed away. The other one went crazy. From what he saw, he couldn't handle it. His body couldn't handle it. So when he came back a little. And another one, I think, lost his faith.
Turned.
He saw too much. And Rabbi Akiva was the only one that went in and came out unharmed. So obviously Rabbi Akiva was on a much greater level. But it was also his approach that he went in knowing he's going out. They went in, they were like, let's see where this takes us. Akiva said, no, I'm going in, but I know I'm coming back out. But this, again, shows you the great strength of Rabbi Akiva, that he was able to, on a spiritual level, go up. They have other rabbis that have done similar concepts, even like a couple hundred years ago, but I wouldn't say it was on that level as Rabbi Akiva did. So that is another thing that we see that is amazing about Rabbi Akiva. Okay, next paragraph. Almost. That's okay, don't worry about it. Okay, but do you also know that all the extraordinary scholarship of the most famous of all Tanoim, that time the rabbis were called Tanoim, they were like the authors of the Mishnah. The authors of the Mishnah were called Tanoim, was due to self-sacrificing love of the Torah of his wife. What's the story? Where did he come? Where did he become a rabbi? What happened? What was the story? So the wife of Rabbi Akiva, her name was Rachel. Rachel, Rabbi Akiva's wife. Rabbi Akiva was born as a child of a very poor family and became an ignorant shepherd. He wasn't educated. He knew nothing of the Torah, nothing of the alphabet. One of the many who took care of the thousands of flock of the wealthy man in Jerusalem at that time. His name was Kalba Sabua. I'll explain that name in a second. About whose riches the Talmud tells many, many stories, how great, how rich he was. The daughter of this fabulous man was a beautiful and God-fearing girl. The riches and most learned young men at the time would have considered themselves fortunate to become her chassan, her groom, right? But Rachel, the only child, did not look at the riches. She was looking for a quality guy. And every person her father offered to her, she's like, he's not for me. Meantime, he was a poor guy working on the field for this Kalba of Savua. Kalba is a dog, Savua is a satisfied. That's weird for a rich man to have a name as a satisfying dog, or the dog that satisfies, or being satisfied as a dog. What was the story? He had that name. His house, his doors were open, and anybody could come in and eat. And even if you were hungry like a dog, he went out like, whoosh. So he got that name of somebody that can satisfy anybody, even a hungry dog. So it doesn't sound too positive, but it was a kind of a positive name for him. But he was very wealthy. Gold and silver hanging on his walls. I mean, it was a kind of crazy stuff what he had. So she saw this guy working for her father, and she started to have conversations with him, and she realized the guy doesn't know anything. But she saw he's very deep. He's got a mind. So she told him, I'll make a deal with you. If you take upon yourself to learn Torah, I'll marry you. He told her, what, are you crazy? Forget it. No, it's not going to happen. I'm wasting my time. Rabbi Akiva later said about him that he hated the learners so much. You give him a guy that was a learner, a rabbi, he would rip him apart. There was such a disconnect between the simple people and the educated people at that time that if you would bring him together, he would beat the guy up. They didn't see eye to eye. So on the condition that he would leave her father's work and go and study Torah, and then she married him secretly. Her father didn't even know, or he knew, but it was like, it was her decision. That's it. As Rachel refused one young man after the other, Kabbalah Savua found out about her secret marriage to his former shepherd. He was very angry, and he vowed that he would have nothing to do with her or her husband. Gladly, the only child of the richest man of those days left all the luxuries and comfort to which she had been used to, and went to live with Akiva in a shack. He was nice enough to give his daughter on the edge of the property a shack, a barn to live in with Akiva. The parents are living in this palace with hundreds of servants or whatever, and she's living in a shack with Rabbi Akiva, sleeping on a bundle of straw and working hard with her own soft hands so that her husband could devote himself to study Torah. Once she could find work, she even cut off her beautiful long hair to sell it, so that she would have some money to which to buy a dry crust of bread for both of them. Okay? Now, Rabbi Akiva still had a challenge with accepting the fact that he'll be able to learn. One time he went to a waterfall, and he sees a stone, like a part like where the waterfall is dropping, and he sees there's an indentation there. There's the stone had made way a little bit. There's a hole there. So he says, "Wow, look at this. Water is soft. Stone is hard. If the water can make a dent into this stone, and the water is soft, for sure the word of Torah is strong. It's powerful. It's insightful. For sure, it can make a hole in my brain, in my flesh, and it can come through. So I have no excuse. If the water can go through a stone, then the Torah could go through my head. I have no excuse." Now, he had a child. According to some opinions at that time, he had a child. Or at least he went with the children to school. The little kids were at school. He went with them to school. They were reading Aleph. He was reading Aleph. Beis. You know how old he was when he went to school? 40 years old. So for the first 40 years he didn't know anything. 40 years old, he got married, and 40 years old, he started to learn Torah. And he slowly started to pick it up. He started to ask questions, and he was very curious, and he didn't let it go. And then he went to study for 12 years. He got permission from his wife to go to the big study yeshiva and study for 12 years. He went there for 12 years, and he became such a big rabbi, such a student, such a scholar, that he became the rabbi, and he had 12,000 students under him. He was the rabbi for 12,000 students. Can you imagine? After 12 years, he had 12,000 students under him. Okay, he comes home. He's about to enter the house, and he hears there's a conversation going on in his house. There's some guy from the town, from his father, from her father's place. Starts talking to her. Says, "What are you doing? You let everything go. You married this guy. You sent him to learn Torah. You don't know if he's learning, he's not learning. You don't know if he's coming back, he's not coming back." She says, "Listen, I know my husband. The guy is committed, and the guy has an unbelievable mind. And I am so happy that because of me, he's learning Torah. And I'm a partner with him. Whatever he learns, it's 50-50. I am so happy that he's learning Torah. I don't mind if he could learn another 12 years there. It's fine. I'm totally cool." He heard that. He turned right around. Went back to yeshiva. Went back to the school. 12 years later, he had 24,000 students. Imagine a rabbi that has 24,000 students. I mean, they must have had a big hall to teach these guys, like a theater. Who knows what they had there, right? 24,000. It could be that he taught some of them and they taught others, but he had 24,000 students. And then he decided he's coming home. He's coming back to Jerusalem. Now, the 24,000 students, they're not going to leave their rabbi and let him go home alone. They want to come and move to Jerusalem also. So they decided they're going with him. Rabbi Akiva is coming to Jerusalem. The greatest sage of that time is coming to Jerusalem. What do you think everybody did in Jerusalem? They all come out to greet him. It's a big parade. Imagine the president is coming. Imagine the president is coming to Plainview right now. What is everybody going to do? All politics aside. If everybody liked the president, right? The president comes, everybody's going to come out. We want to see, right? Yeah, wow, So Rabbi Akiva is coming to town. Rabbi Akiva, the sage of the century. Everybody came out. So Rabbi Akiva's wife, she says, this greatest sage is coming to town. She wants to go also. So everybody put on their fancy clothes. She didn't have any fancy clothes to put on. She only had her rags. So she went and she decided she's going to go there and she'll find her husband somewhere in the crowd. 24,000 students. Her husband's got to be there somewhere, right? So how's she going to find her husband from 24,000 students? Can't do that. So she'll go to the rabbi and she'll ask him where her husband is, right? So she pushes her way through all the way to the rabbi, and she wants to go to the rabbi to ask him. And the students, there's always the people like security guards, right? The people on the side. They're like, hey. So Rabbi Akiva sees her and he recognizes as his wife, and he says, move aside. And she looks at him, and he looks at her. He gives her a great smile. He goes like, hey, you're looking for me in the crowd over there? I'm right here. I'm the guy. So she was so emotional. She fell down. She started to cry. So he put her next to him, and he gave her a present, a headpiece with Jerusalem on it. And he told all his students, he says, your Torah and my Torah belongs to this woman. For not of this woman, I would be a nobody. I would be somewhere, a janitor in the street somewhere. And because of her, she believed in me and she encouraged me to go to yeshiva to learn. That's how I became the rabbi. In the meantime, the father-in-law is coming. He wants to speak to the rabbi. He has a big problem. He says, I have a question. He says, yeah, what's the question? He says, I have a son-in-law that he's a nothing of a nothing. And it's my only daughter. And 24 years ago, she married him, and I wrote her off. I promised I will not give them anything. And 24 years later, I feel bad, but I made a promise. So how can I annul this promise? So Rabbi Akiva said, let me ask you a question. If you would know that your son-in-law would eventually become a Torah scholar, would you have said what you said? He says, absolutely not. My son will become a Torah scholar. Of course not. The whole point was I wanted my son-in-law to be a scholar. You don't want to marry some schnook off the street. So Rabbi Akiva says, in that case, you have nothing to worry about. Your vow is annulled. He says, why? So what do you mean? He says, you're talking to your son-in-law. You're talking to your son-in-law. Right there on the spot, he gave him half. He wrote over half of his riches, Rabbi Akiva. Right there on the spot, half of his riches, Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva came back home. A person that is very knowledgeable in Torah. He's the leader of the generation. And his father-in-law already gave him 50% of the riches. So overnight, he became a millionaire.
Considering he's 64 years old at this time.
He's, 64 years old. Exactly. Quite a while, but he got there. Now, when Rabbi Akiva passed away, there was nobody like him. He was a tremendous rabbi, and he had great wisdom and great insight. There was once a fellow that came to him and said, "Who created the world?" So Rabbi Akiva says, "God created the world." He says, "Prove it to me." So he decided. Rabbi Akiva said, "I'm going to argue with him now." He says, come back to me tomorrow. We'll talk about it tomorrow." Comes back the next day. Rabbi Akiva tells him, "Tell me, the clothing that you're wearing, who made it?" He says, "What do you mean, a tailor?" He says, "In the house that's built out here, who made it?" He says, "Builder." He says, "What do you mean?" Prove it to me." He says, "What do you mean? He creates it?" "I don't have to prove it. It's common sense. You see a outfit, you see a building, you see a house, you know for sure somebody built it. It didn't come by itself. So Akiva says, so listen to what you're saying. You say a garment has to be a creator, someone that made it. A house has to, and you think the world just came by itself? So, you know, so Rabbi Akiva was always, in a way, able to talk to people on their level. As great of a scholar he always had different conversations with people. Rabbi Akiva also was very, very humble. He would never give a class if he wasn't prepared. I wanted to ask him to speak, he said I didn't prepare. And even though he was very, very learned, but when you teach people, you have to teach them with perfection. Because that's what they're getting. If you're not going to teach them perfection, you're not going to, you're going to teach them like a mistake. So Akiva was very, very real about it. Now, there's a story that I remember reading as many years ago. Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 students. 24,000 students. Who's supporting them? Who's giving them money? Who's paying for their food? So, okay, Rabbi Akiva had money. He was able to support. But, you still gotta fundraise. So Rabbi Akiva one time went to fundraise in different places. So he came to a place and he started to collect. He made an announcement, or he went to the synagogue, whatever it was. And so he came the next morning, he went to collect, and he said, okay, let's see who's the richest guy in town. Start with the richest guy. So he comes to the richest man's house, and he's thinking maybe it's too early in the morning, I don't know. So he puts his ear by the door to hear what's going on. And he hears a conversation between the father, the rich man, and his own son. He says, listen, I want you to go shopping for food in the marketplace. I want you to get greens, whatever it was, string beans or something. But don't buy the regular ones, because that's $3 for $1. I want you to buy the rotten ones, because that's like $8 for $1 or $6 for $1. So Rabbi Akiva is thinking to himself, oh my gosh, this is what I'm dealing with? This guy is so cheap, he can't even pay for regular vegetables. Forget it, I'm wasting my time asking him for tzedakah. I'm wasting my time. Skip him. So he went to everybody else in town, and he collected whatever he collected from them. Then he said, okay, I already finished, I still have time, I'll go to him now. He knocks on the door. Guy opens the door, Rabbi Akiva's here. Wow, Rabbi Akiva, come inside to my house. Okay, Rabbi Akiva tells him, listen, I'm collecting for the yeshiva. We have 24,000 students or whatever it was. He says, sure, no problem. Back then, they didn't have banks. Everybody had their money in their house, wherever they hid it. He says, go to the back room. My wife is there. She's tell her that she should give you a full pot of gold. Good. He comes to the back. He says, your husband told me to give you fill up a full pot of gold. So she says, did he say flat, or did he say a mountain? Like, when you get ice cream, you want them to give you on top like this, So he says, did he say flat pot or a mountain? Like, how much gold should I fill up? So he says he didn't say. So she said, okay, I'm going to give you a mountain. Now, it could be I'm stealing, because my husband's, if he meant flat and I'm giving you a mountain, I'm stealing from my husband. So I'm going to give you on condition that if he meant flat and I'm giving you in a mountain, I'm taking it off my allowance that he owes me. Why? Because when a man marries a woman, there's a ketubah, there's a marriage contract. And in the marriage contract, he promises her to give her, to sustain her, to give her X amount of money as the way, that's how he's inquiring her, that's how he's marrying her. So she says, I have credit from my ketubah. So if I'm giving you something that I'm not allowed to give you, I'm taking it from my account. So she gave him a pot full of gold with a mountain. So as he's leaving, the rich man says, I have a complaint to you. I have a question for you. He says, I would like to be the first one for tzedakah. Why'd you come to me last? Always, it's a big honor. It's a big honor to be the first one to start off a mitzvah. Why'd you come to me last? So Rabbi Akiva says, I'll be honest with you. I came to you first, and I heard the conversation you're having with your son. I said, oh my gosh, I'm wasting my time. He said a story from 2,000 years ago. It's amazing, no? It sounds very similar. So he said, I'm wasting my time. So I left. And I came back. I said, you know what? I'll give you, I'll come by anyway. So he says, you should know, the truth is, I am so cheap, I cannot spend a penny on myself. And that's why when it comes to food, I'm always like, because I'm cheap. I'm a cheap person. But when it comes to charity, I know it's not my money. I know that all the money that I got is really from God. So who am I to be cheap? It's not mine. So for myself, I could be cheap. But the value of understanding that everything belongs to Hashem, that I know. That overrides my cheapness, and I give stuff. Rabbi Akiva was so excited to hear that. Blessed him that he should always be rich and always be able to do many, many, many good things. But just a side note of tzedakah. Another very interesting story with Rabbi Akiva. He one time went to a queen, a certain royal lady, non-Jewish, and he asked her for a loan. He said, I need to have X amount of money coming in for the yeshiva, and I don't have right now, and I have to support my students. I want a loan. So she said, okay, I'll give you a loan on one condition. I want backers. Somebody that will back you for the loan. There's a word for guarantors. I want guarantors. So he said that the I don't remember the terminology. He said either the water, or the sky, or the heaven and the earth, or the water, or something like that. They're my backers. They're my witnesses. So she said, okay, fine. I mean, she also she accepted it. Anyway, came the date to pay back, and Rabbi Akiva didn't show up. He didn't show up to pay. So she went out to the water, and she says, "Heaven and earth, you guys are the backers. Where's my money?" All of a sudden, a wave brought in this massive chest of, from the sea, and she opens it up, and she sees the thing is full of gold, silver. She had her servant or whatever it is take it to the palace where she is. And then, like a couple days later, Rabbi Akiva came to pay her back, and he apologized. He got stuck. Whatever it is, he wasn't able to make it on time, but he has all the money, and he brought her the money. So she says, "You don't owe me the money. I was already paid." He says, "What do you mean? I have the money here. How are you paid?" So she tells him. She says, and here she gives him the rest of the box. The rest is yours. Whatever he keep the change, like. From the actual box that she found, she gave him the change. Now, the Lubavitcher Rebbe spoke about it. He said that Rabbi Akiva was one of the great sages that not only... All right, tell him in 10 minutes. He has 10 minutes. All right? So, the Rebbe explains that there's some people that were such deep learners, they could connect to the Torah itself helped them out. That the Torah itself was a power tool. See, the way it works in the world is light that comes down in different levels until it comes down to this world. It's like you have a computer, right? You see that? That's the plug. It's got a big head. Why does it have a big head? Why does it have such a big head for the plug?
I don't know.
Seriously, it's an adapter. It needs to because you can't just plug it in. You plug it in straight, it's gonna burn it. So that head is an adapter, so the electricity is a lot less going into the what is that for the phone? Whatever that is, not for the phone, but whatever it is, maybe for the computer or something. Yeah, right. All the computers have this big box in the middle, right? Because the computer can't take a full charge. So this world is also like that. The higher worlds, the light is a lot greater, and it comes in slowly. That's called hishtalshul. In the Hebrew and Kabbalistic terms, it's called hishtalshul. That it goes from one world to the other goes down. So you pray, it goes all the way up, and then comes all the way down. So it's a process. Most things in our life, we work, we have to put in a certain level of investment. That investment represents something, and then the blessing trickles down. Rabbi Akiva was on a level, another couple of rabbis also on the level, great sages, that their Torah was so powerful that you didn't need all those levels to get whatever they needed. They went straight down. Straight down, like miracles. Boom, came down. Understand? So this story is like a miracle. But Rabbi Akiva even wasn't even aware about it. He didn't pray, "Oh God, help me, I got stuck. Please make a miracle." He didn't even pray. He was going to come late 3 days, right? But it happened for him. It was such a powerful connection with the Torah that the Torah itself did it for him. Okay, now, what else do I have over here? Okay. Now we have some other really interesting stuff. Rabbi Akiva had one of his rabbis, his name was Nachum Ish Gamzu. His name was Nachum. Nachum is a Hebrew name. Ish, the man, Mr. Gamzu. What's Gamzu? Gam in Hebrew is this. Zu, this also. This too. Why was he called Mr. This too? Because he had a saying, this too is for the good. He was a rabbi that he came to recognize that everything that Hashem does is for the good. He lived with it. And he always used to tell everybody this. And therefore his nickname was Nachum, the man, Ish Gamzu. This too is for the good. Rabbi Akiva had a different saying. Kol ma de Avid Rachman, whatever the master above does, the Tav Avid he does for the good. Even if it's something bad, it's also good. So there's a story. There's a story that Rabbi Akiva had, there's a story that Nachum Ish Gamzu had. What was the story that Nachum Ish Gamzu had? There was a decree against the Jewish people at that time. The Roman Emperor made a decree. And the Jewish people didn't know what to do. So they asked Nachum Ish Gamzu that he should go and represent the Jewish people with the emperor. But you can't just come empty-handed. These people are corrupt and you got to help them out. So they prepared this beautiful box. They put in gold, silver, jewels, whatever. They collected from everybody. And this should be like a present of appreciation for the emperor. And they should find favor in the emperor's eyes, and he should take off the decrees that he made of the Jewish people. Okay. Nachum Ish Gamzu, he's a holy man. He takes the box and he goes. When you think he's thinking about the box the whole day, he's doing his own world. He goes to a hotel on the way and he stops off. And in the hotel, they see that this guy's walking around with a box. They're like, okay, we got to check out this box. We got to see what's in this box. So they wait till he's sleeping. They sneak into his room. They open the box. They see, wow, it's full of diamonds, jewels, and gold and silver. So they take it. But they're not going to leave the box empty. So they went to the backyard. They took stones and sand or whatever. They put it into the box. And they closed it. So Nachum Ish Gamzu picks up the box. He doesn't know. He didn't even know there wasn't even in there. Can you imagine? He goes to the king, comes to the emperor, and he tells the emperor, I'm coming here to represent the Jews, and we're asking for help, and as a token of appreciation, we're representing to you this box. Okay, the emperor's all excited. He opens the box. You're making a joke out of me. It's stones and earth, dirt. You put dirt in there. Right away, he sent him to jail. Nachum Ish Gamzu says, Gam Zula Tova, this too is for the good. I think he even saw it before. I'm sorry. He realized the box, but he said, this is for the good. This is what God wants. I'm not worried. I'm going to the king with this box. In the meantime, God made a miracle. One of the advisors, Elijah the prophet, came as disguised as an advisor. He tells the emperor, do you think the Jews are crazy? You think they're going to send you a box with sand? They're going to make a fool out of themselves. They know you could kill them all. What? There's obviously something deeper going on over here. Maybe this is a sand from their great-great-great-great-great-grandfather Abraham. What's the sand? Because it says in the Bible that when Abraham, he fought the kings, he fought 4 kings that took away 5 kings because his nephew was in prison. And he didn't have weapons, so he took the sand and they threw it, and the sand itself turned into weapons, arrows and spears and whatever, and that's how they killed the whole army. So the king says, the emperor says, you know what? In that case, check it out. They took some of the stuff, they took it to the front where he had a war at that time. They threw it, spears, arrows, this, that, bada boom, bada bam, like bombs, knocking the enemy out. So he says, wow, this is amazing. He went himself to Nachum Ish Gamzu. He apologized. I'm sorry for putting him in jail. I didn't realize what type of present you gave me. He was so excited. He sent him back home with 10 wagons. 10 wagons full of gold and silver. He came with a little box. He sent it back with 10 wagons of gold and silver. Okay. Now there's a custom that whenever you travel, you should go back to the same place where you come from, as a appreciation that you stay there. So where did Nachum Ish Gamzu go? To which hotel did he go to stay by?
Same place.
Same place. Now these guys, they're watching this guy coming in with 10 wagons of gold and silver with guards and everything. So they ask, what's happened? They said, he went to the king and he brought him special sand and this sand turned into bows and arrows and spears and bombs. They think to themselves, are we crazy? We're sitting on a gold mine. We took that dirt from our backyard. You know how much dirt we have like that? So they filled up big wagons full of that dirt, and they went to the king. They came to the king, to the emperor, and the emperor says, what's he says? Listen, that stuff that Jew brought you, it's from our backyard. So he says, okay, let's try it. He tries it, nothing happened. So the king started to investigate. What do you mean from your backyard? How do you get to your backyard? So they told him the truth, that they stole his money, and so he put them all in jail. That was the end of it. He realized that obviously it was from God, yeah? That's Nachamish Gamzu. Gamzu Latova. Okay, that's Gamzu's story. Then comes Rabbi Akiva. One time Rabbi Akiva was traveling. He used to travel a lot. He didn't want to miss out. No, but he traveled a lot to go to places. So he traveled. He traveled once with a donkey, a rooster, and a candle to be able to see what he's doing. He came to a certain town. He asked them, can I stay in the town? Everybody said no. No. There were all people, not nice people in that town. Nobody wanted to be hospitable. Okay, so what do? You got to go to sleep. What are you going to do? So he went to the forest. And he's trying to go to sleep, but he's not falling asleep. So he says, he's going to learn. So he lights the candle. He starts reading his text, his scrolls. And all of a sudden, a great wind comes and puts out the candle. A couple minutes later, a cat comes and eats his chicken, or his rooster, whatever it is. A little while later, some other animal comes and eats up his donkey. He's left with nothing. How would you feel that night?
Not so good.
You were sent out of a whole town. Everything, you finally tried to make camp in the forest, and your candle, everything is gone. He says, Kalma, everything that God does is for the good. Next morning he wakes up. He goes to the town to get some food. He sees everybody's dead. They're all slaughtered. What happened? Bandits came that night. They went into the town, they ransacked the whole place, and they killed everybody. So Rabbi Akiva was very lucky that they told him no. This he was saved, that's one. Two, if the bandits would hear a rooster or a donkey, these are not wild animals that live in the forest. So they would know that somebody is there. They would see the candle. So God created a situation that there should be no evidence that he's there, so he should be spared from the story. So Rabbi Akiva said, this is his saying, this too is for the good. It wasn't good that he lost his stuff, but in comparison to what could have happened to him, this was good. So it's explained the difference between his teacher and him. His teacher said, this itself is good. His teacher, the thing turned into what's it called? They stole his stuff, right? But it was even better than before. Imagine he would come with the regular money to the king. He would say, I need your money, get out of here. Get out of here, get lost. But he gave him something that's worth more than money. Gamzul Torah. This itself was good. Rabbi Akiva didn't have that. Rabbi Akiva had a level that he was spared. He lost what he lost, but at least his life was saved. A little different. So it's explained Rabbi Akiva represented a lower generation. It wasn't Rabbi Akiva himself, but he represented a lower generation. And Nachamish Gamzu represented a higher generation. The higher generation, they're able to see how everything is good. And the lower generation were only able to see that it is also good. It's concealed good. See? See the difference? All right, it's another story of Rabbi Akiva. Very interesting.
Soon. You're gonna drink when you're forced.
Huh?
The water.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You don't have to schlep the bottles anymore. Okay. There's an unbelievable story of There's an unbelievable story of Rabbi Akiva's daughter. Rabbi Akiva saw Ruach HaKodesh. She had divine inspiration. Oh, I'll tell you an even better story, and then we'll get to Rabbi Akiva's daughter. Rabbi Akiva lived till 120. There were only 4 people in history that actually lived to 120. Moses lived to 120. Rabbi Akiva lived to 120. I don't remember the other 2 now offhand, but it's brought down. It's a quote. I have to look it up for next class. 4 people lived to 120. Rabbi Akiva was one of them. So 40 years, nothing. 40 years, he, in a sense, learned Torah, and 40 years he taught Torah. Okay? I mean, but basically it was 40 and 40 and 40. So Rabbi Akiva used to have conversations with all different people. One of the people that he had conversation was one of the great Roman, higher-ranking officers. Rabbi Akiva wiped the floor with him. He'd come and argue with Rabbi Akiva about Judaism and God. Rabbi Akiva took the guy, made garbage out of him, garbage out of him. The guy was so broken, he came home, he was broken. His wife asked him what happened. He said, Rabbi Akiva made crap out of me in front of everybody. So she says, give me permission, and I'm going to get him. She says, I give you permission. So she dressed herself up, all fancy. And she came and she presented herself, Rabbi Akiva, to get him to sin with her. And then she could say, yeah, look at this rabbi, he's a nobody. Mm-hmm. Rabbi Akiva looked at her. He spit. He went, two! He spit. He cried. And he left. So she says, whoa, what's this? He says, I'll tell you. I spit because I came to realize that you come from a little dot. How's a child born? From a little dot, a little sperm. So it's like it's nothing. It's like a person going to the bathroom. That's what it is. It's disgusting. So I'm gonna be affected by you. You're garbage, like everybody else. It's not something that I should be affected by. Because that's why I spit. It's disgusting. The whole thing's disgusting. So I thought about the essence of who people are. Then I cried because she was a beautiful woman. I cried that such beauty is going to go eventually to the ground. You live 100 years. After the person dies, it goes to the ground, right? So the beauty that she has is eventually going to be lost. I cried because it's real beauty. And he says, so she said, what about the laugh? He says, that I cannot tell you. That's my own secret. Okay. So she was inspired by him. Rabbi Akiva didn't bend to her like this, So she says, do I have the opportunity to do tshuva? Can I do tshuva? He says, yeah. After her husband passed away, she converted. She became Jewish. Rabbi Akiva's wife had already passed, and she married Rabbi Akiva. Now he laughed, he smiled, because he knew he was going to marry her one day. But he couldn't tell it to her. You hear? She was also very, very wealthy. So when she married him, she brought her wealth with her. So Rabbi Akiva had a good record of making money. He made money from his father-in-law. He made money, from his second wife. This is a story of Akiva that he didn't fall for it on a lower level. So there's a discussion of what type of tshuva did she do. But there's still an interesting story. Now here's a story about, we'll include this story and then we're going to go to Myra. Rabbi Akiva had a daughter, and he knew that she's going to die the night of her wedding. He knew. Couldn't tell her, but he knew. That's what he said. On one hand, he was very excited she's getting married, but he knew she's not going to be. Rabbi Akiva had a daughter.
Oh,
and he was able to see from divine inspiration, from Ruach HaKodesh, that she is going to die, she's going to pass away that night. Rabbi Akiva was going to the wedding like this, he couldn't, mixed feelings, he was shaking. Okay. The next morning, he came to see how his daughter's doing. She's alive, everything is fine. And she tells him a crazy story. And in the morning when she woke up, she saw a dead snake right next to her bed. What happened? They had these big silver pins they would put into their hair, the way they would braid their hair. So at night, she was dark, she put it into the wall. When she put it into the wall, she put it right into the head of the snake, and she killed the snake. So there was a snake that was supposed to kill her that night, and she killed the snake by mistake. So Akiva said, no, it didn't happen by mistake. You obviously did something yesterday, but because of that, your life was saved, because you weren't supposed to be alive today. What did you do? So she says, by the wedding, a poor man came, and he didn't have a meal, and I gave away my meal, my plate, from my own wedding, to that poor man. So Akiva said, that's the reason why you're alive. You gave tzedakah. It says tzedakah tatzum amaz. Tzedakah can save a person from death. You gave charity on your own wedding. That's what you were. So that's it. She didn't die. She lived her life, just from that one thing. Just from that one thing. It's a powerful story. We never know. Sometimes a person asks you for money. I used to tell people in the synagogue. Sometimes the guys used to come in. Oh, Rabbi, I'm not giving to this guy. He's a crook. He's a this. He's a that. I don't like when people come to my house and they ask you for money. But I said, listen. I told this guy, I said, listen. You don't have to give him $100. You don't have to give him $300. But don't send the guy back empty-handed. Give him $1. Give him $2. Give him $5. Give him $10. Whatever you want to give. Whatever. But do not send the person empty-handed, because you never know. It could be opportunity for you. Hashem sent that person there for you to give you the chance to make a mitzvah just in case, because Hashem always brings the cure before the sickness, and it's up to us if we want to take the cure or we don't want to take the cure. So this is a story that we learned from Rabbi Akiva's daughter. Obviously, where she get the education from her parents of what it is to give tzedakah. We still have a lot more to talk about him, but this will be in the next class.